Winspiration, the way to the essential. On UK Health Radio, Winspiration brings wisdom and information for an extraordinary future. Together, we can shape the world we want to live in. So let's get real and create the idea. Be extraordinary. Welcome to another episode of Winspiration Radio, wisdom and information for an extraordinary future. And therefore, we have extraordinary guests. Today, I'm so happy and grateful to have Lindsay Vannoy here as a guest. I met him years ago, and it was connected to American TV host Rachel Rinstra. We were in Orlando, and she took me, and we went to an concert from Sir Elton John, and there was Lindsay letting us in, and he was taking care of the guests, but he was already busy because he was involved also in the work of the show. But we connected there and stayed in contact and met in different places when it was just also closer to meet, like when Elton performed in Montreux, we met there, or we met in Berlin and other places, and had all very good talks, and in Leipzig, and always we, and when we had also the chance to have other people around, and he was talking about his life, they were all really, really impressed. And I'm like and love this guy because he is not only such a wonderful soul, but it's also interesting his approach to life. And he will share what he approached, why he worked with Elton John for over 25 years, but he never really forced it. So understanding the laws of the universe and just living from the inside out, he got the calls, everything unfolded, and it's a beautiful life if you can just trust the process. And I hope you see it the same, Lindsay. So thank you for being here, and that you feel also that you have an incredible special life, how everything is unfolding. And if you want to add something, please do. Otherwise, I would love that you start with where you started as a technician and then the musician, and how it came to then work with Elton.
Well, first, thank you very much for this opportunity. This is very rewarding for me to be part of the Winspiration process. When I started out as a young piano player and someone also interested in mechanical things, I think like many young people, you have a general sense of what you may want to do in life, but have no idea how far things could really take you. My beginnings started out simply with I had some relatives who played music, not particularly that well, but enough to inspire me to I would get a feeling when I would see a person play an instrument and how that sound could create an emotion in someone else. And I felt, for whatever reason, that I might be able to do the same. And then partly with piano too, it's a very mechanical thing. There's so many moving parts in a piano that at times I would just be fascinated by the motion of all the hammers and things. So right from a very early age, I had two very strong interests. One was, in music and the creation of music, and also, which is quite different, all things mechanical. And that started me on a journey. And it's always easier when you have absolutely one specific passion, because you don't have as much of a distraction. When you have two,
sorry, the flies.
When you do have two passions, you realize, or two interests, you have to decide if it's two passions or it's one passion and one distraction. And in my case, it turned out to be two passions. So one of the things I had to come to terms early on with was, will these fight each other in
Did you
trying
ever
to?
have stress with it in decisions?
Yes. Very early on, especially when from the outside, people could see I had talents in both areas.
Mm.
Um, the focus from most people was to pursue things more on the mechanical engineering side of things,
Mm.
because in the time frame of growing up, that was the considered the smarter choice as far as having
The
a
parents
standard.
do this as well.
Yes. Parents were definitely all about music is a nice hobby,
Yeah.
but you need a livelihood, and engineering is a very solid career. Um,
Mm.
and I just constantly felt the push and pull between the two, um,
Mm.
which ended up leading me to, during my high school years, start a rock band with fellow classmates, while pursuing a college or a university academic track.
Mm.
And at the conclusion of my high school, I did go into university to study mechanical engineering. And of course, while at university studying that, I was involved in my rock bands. I
Mm.
was known for the individual who actually had a classic Hammond B3 in their college dormitory room, which is just unheard of at an engineering
Mm.
institution. So from there, after graduation, I did make it through. And again, the push and pull, I ended up basically double majoring, studying for a degree in mechanical engineering and a degree in electronic music. Um, my advisors weren't quite sure why I would have two such diverse disciplines, but it was my choice. And I just felt that if there's a path that doesn't make sense to some people, but does to yourself, um, someone has to be the first to forge forward and figure out how to combine those.
Very important sentence. Really listen to your inner voice and not just simply to the outer voice. Yes.
Yes. So upon graduation, uh, I immediately got another band going
Mm-hmm.
and started doing some songwriting. Uh, in that day, recording studios, professional studios was how you would set up demos for your music, and very pricey. And I knew I had the good education, so I went in and got a engineering job. And as uh, life would have it, I ended up working for Princeton University in their thermonuclear fusion energy research laboratory. Um, it's called plasma physics. Plasma is a state of vaporized atoms. Basically, fusion energy is how our sun works.
Mm-hmm.
It's the complete opposite of the nuclear power fission industry. So none of the hazards associated with that. So that was a very interesting job, and I pursued that during the daytime. And as a research facility, it allowed a very flexible schedule, which meant, once again, the dichotomy of my life. I could pursue the engineering degree to the fullest, and that would support the music, songwriting, and band aspect. And I carried that on for a decade and kept working both. And then we got to the pivotal point where people would come up to me and said, you're very good at both of these things. And I said to myself, very good is not good enough for me. It's good for a lot of people. I
Yeah.
want to excel. And
Mm-hmm.
to excel, I now need to focus. And I stepped away from the engineering career, I thought, and put all my energies into music.
Yeah.
And I had several years of transition, and then through connections I had made over the years, I ended up landing a position on a world tour, Tina Turner's world tour. And from that, I ended up meeting people from the Elton John production camp, and that opened the door to little jobs in the Elton camp. And when they realized that I had piano skills, people skills, and engineering skills, which they could really use, they brought me on for a little more. And as different problems developed on tour, they realized I was the go-to guy. And then they brought me on full time, which has now led to a 20 plus year relationship with them, culminating with this current Elton John Farewell Yellow Brick Road tour, where it encompassed about 5 years of time because of the COVID shutdown in between. But we accomplished over 330 shows worldwide.
Yeah.
And the equipment that I designed created the piano sound of Elton. And I'm very proud of it that in the 300 plus shows, the equipment worked great. Elton never had an issue with things. And he ended up to date having the most successful world tour of anyone. But that's concluded, and now it's time for another chapter.
Yeah, but just say a little bit there, because for the first of all, exciting as a big team, but you had not just one piano, you had 5 around the world, and you created something very special, what nobody had before, and that was
yes.
It will feel like to share how you could come up with the idea of building something into the piano.
Like many artists, when they have a long-standing career and a huge catalog of work, they will incorporate a teleprompter system into their stage setup. Many artists have them. There's speakers down the leading edge of the stage, and some of the speakers will actually look like a regular speaker, but it's a computer monitor in there. One of the problems with all of those is they get in the way of the audience member seeing the artist on stage. And Elton had that as well. And he cares very, very much about the experience of his fans. And he said, we need to have something better. And I was given the task of looking into some options. And I said, I have an idea. It's not conventional, but I know we can do this. And that was to actually build the teleprompter into his piano. Now, other artists have had situations where they've taken a monitor and laid it flat on top. I wanted something which was totally incognito to the audience, but functionally, which it had to be, was the paramount issue, that he could see it and it would work day in, day out, and be very comfortable for him and not change his seating position as he performed. So I went to the drawing board and drafted up a couple of ideas and went through some prototypes. And we ended up coming up with a design and mounted it into the piano and had him come out. He took one look at it, loved the final product, and immediately took that piano right on tour and just enjoyed it, enjoyed having the free space downstage that used to be blocked by the previous monitor. And things were good until we took a break. And then we went back out on tour in a different part of the world. And as you said, Elton has a whole series of the 9-foot Yamaha CF3 pianos. Well, the modification, the teleprompter, we had only done to the one piano, and we get to Europe, and he sat down at the piano, and the first thing out of his mouth was, "Where's my screen?" And at which point, management came up to me and said, "We need to do all of his pianos worldwide," which may sound not like a difficult job when you've done one and okay, you have 4 or 5 more pianos to do, except for the fact that these pianos are scattered across the globe. And it took the better part of a year in between supporting Elton on the road, and then during a break where it'd be a long enough break, we could take the piano out of commission, do the modification, test it, and get it back in. But we did. So now all of his pianos worldwide have that same teleprompter setup. And even to this day, as he will do occasional one-off events, it's right there. And it also doubles as a message center, because at times there'll be things where something may be happening on the side of the stage and we need to send him a message during the show. And again, Elton's all about keeping the show flowing with minimal interruptions. And it's a lot better to have a little message come up on a screen as opposed to a stage manager having to walk up on stage, hand him a note, or talking to his ear in the middle of a performance.
Yeah.
So
great
again,
invention, and nobody else on planet Earth, 8 billion people, but just Lindsay created it. But you were not the technician also, though even you had also was a music performance together. You were playing also the keyboard.
Yes. One of the advantages that helped my situation, continue a career with Elton, was that, for instance, with the teleprompter, being a piano player, I knew exactly where to sit, what your positioning is, what the comfort zone is. So when I designed it as if I were performing, and it would not interrupt the performance process. Yeah. As the Elton camp learned more of my musical skills, at one point, the keyboard player for Elton was working on one of Elton's many other projects, a Broadway musical. He had to leave the tour for a period, and I was their number one choice for coming in and filling in as the keyboard player for a good solid month throughout Europe. So I've been as a piano technician, a piano player, engineer, and actually part of the Elton John band, albeit for a short period of time, but had actually performed with Elton on stage.
But yeah, okay. Just finish, and then I got my question.
Yeah, which just having that perspective has helped me out tremendously to start thinking about other possible inventions to aid musicians in giving them the best performance possible.
You're not only playing with him on the stage, but then I remember you told me about a story about the Rocket Man, and there was an actor who should play.
Yes.
And then he said, "Oh no, I don't do this. Lindsay, can you work with him?" Was it Cannes Festival or whatever?
With Elton is very, very wise with his time, and for a position with our organization, which most of the people have been with him for decades, there's not a traditional sound check where the whole band and Elton would come out to test the sound system. There's no need because, again, all the people have done it for so long, but we still need to do some sort of check. So Elton knows that I'm a piano player and knows I know how to play songs like him. I would come out in the day and actually play his piano to get it dialed in for the concerts for him. Well, as time would go on, they had the film Rocket Man came out, which was a musical quasi-biography of his life with Taron Egerton as the star. Well, the film was being premiered at the Cannes Film Festival, and I got a note from management saying Elton would like to do a duet with Taron as a surprise after the premiere screening of the film. And I said, great. And they said, well, we need you to go to Cannes. You'll set up a piano um, in an area for the performance after the screening, but Elton will want to go through and just run the song down with Taron. So it's not typically a duet. So they wanted to figure out how to split the lyrics up and make it a good performance. So to that end, he wanted me to have a little rehearsal room set up, and I got through all of the logistics of that. And then Elton realized, what, Lindsay, Rocket Man, and he's busy with all the activities associated with the premiere. He said, I want you to do the rehearsing of Taron. And then Elton could come in at the last minute. So where this definitely came from left field, I had no idea about this. And I know when I mentioned it to some people, they thought how terrifying that was. And I looked at it as what an unbelievable opportunity.
Yeah.
Elton's entrusting me with the rehearsing and figuring out how to do this duet. And so it turned out at that time, I had not known the song Rocket Man. I knew of it, but did not know how to play it. So step one was learn Rocket Man very quickly. And then I went on to meet with Taron, and who's a fantastic gentleman, a very talented actor. And we went on and ran through it, got it all dialed in. And then later that day, Elton met with Taron very briefly. And that night they did the performance and things went very, very well. So I never know what's going to come my way through the Elton camp.
And it comes, you order, not really, but you just shared now the story with the teleprompter. So there was a technician. Now we talk more about the musician. So working with Elton these years, or like in those moments, who are you then? How do you feel? More technician, musician, or a mutek, or what is it?
I definitely at the heart of things feel mostly musician. What's interesting, back in university when I was studying engineering, it occurred to me that a lot of the engineers were just people who were good in the math and science, but the best engineers were ones that had some sort of creative outlet, because at the end of the day, a very good engineer is a creative engineer, not just, as they say, a cookbook engineer. So as much as I feel I'm mostly musician, I'm mostly, I think I would call a creative person. And it's just that I am fortunate enough to have two outlets to pursue my creativity.
Yeah.
So, which I really enjoy, because inspiration, as things are, inspiration comes and goes. And luckily, I had in a situation with two passions that sometimes when the inspiration to create new music eludes me for a little bit, I pick it up on the engineering side, where at times then that field allows the creative juices to flow.
So you shared what you did there and how it unfolded, and I know it's so much more where we have not the lifetime to share everything. But I learned a lot of lessons from you also. Like you said, also you have people skills, and then you were, as we met first, also I said, responsible also for VIP guests, and you created also for the tour the special idea with VIP guests more, and showed them around, and so and you shared also a little bit. Elton was really keen of making the experience right.
Yes, it's there's some very interesting things that some of the very important lessons I've learned through life is that one needs definitely to listen to a lot of people that are close to them in life, personally and professionally, and because at times there may be things they're saying that you may have a talent or special skill that you don't see. That almost the definition of a talent is something that you won't see because it's easy to you.
Yeah.
And the only reason you know it's a talent is because other people find it difficult. Back in the day when I was working at the research facility for Princeton, because of the nature of the research, it was interested to the scientific community. We would have journalists come in, and management knew that I could explain in layman's terms a lot of the technical issues. And I never thought much about it, except that through my personal life, people would ask, what is it you do at work? And when I would say, oh, thermonuclear fusion energy research, and they go, what is that? And I figured out a way to quickly explain that in terms they could understand. And that ended up evolving into every time a journalist came in at the research laboratory, I was the chosen one to explain all of this high-tech science into simple terms. Well, fast forward, with the creation of the farewell tour, Elton had wanted to do something extra special for the fans, and that was to provide a VIP experience. And that what that encompassed was allowing fans to come to the show early, have a backstage tour of the equipment, and just a better understanding of what it took to put on a show of this magnitude. Now, when I say this magnitude, we did everything from small theaters in the 5,000 seat capacity all the way up to stadiums of close to 100,000 person capacity. So,
or was it 60 trucks or something?
Yes. We had at least 60 lorries, a crew that was well over 100 people of just direct Elton hired people. And then we would have another added, at least another 100 people brought in locally to make everything happen. So with the VIP program, again, management had said, well, as someone who has created the teleprompter system and knows the detailed workings of the piano, and as well, I said there's electronics that were associated with the piano. I had designed all of that. They asked if I would be interested in giving a little bit of a talk. And it reminded me of my days back at Princeton, and I took it on as a challenge. Public speaking was not my forte or ever intended career, but I tried it, and I realized one thing I am good with is talking with people. And in getting our VIP group, I had a neat little challenge. Every day it was different, because some days the group of people would be just hardcore fans who just wanted to hear Elton's stories and weren't interested in anything technical. Other times it was fellow music industry professionals who wanted to know the nitty-gritty detail of how we would make this very difficult show get put together so smoothly and work so flawlessly. So I had the skill set that if I had to cater the discussion to a direct fan base, I could, to a professional base, I could. Other times, we just had people that were up and coming musicians or even celebrity musicians who wanted to know more about the actual interaction of the band with Elton. And again, because I had been through all of those camps, having been the engineer that designed things, having been someone who knows the catalog of music, having been a person that actually performed on stage with Elton, I never thought of it, but all those skill sets needed to come together to do this one VIP position. And again, that was one of these things where I never had an idea of that was a direction I wanted to go in. Other people around me saw that in me and suggested I do it. And it's just a case of there are times where the people closest to you may be able to support you more than you realize. And you have to give
maybe, like you said, talent, you don't realize it. It is something more with what I also respect is your integrity. There are people who have kind of talents, but maybe too much ego, too much facade or whatever. And you're just somehow an extreme humble person with enormous capabilities, abilities. So that's it's also so easy to recommend you and trust you for all this. And I think that's also, I can see for all the people I connected with you, or everybody loved that was hanging on your lips. And so, because it just, yeah, it's a lot of just coming from your heart. Huh?
Thank you. It's on the one hand, it's very easy to be humble when you work with an absolute genius and one in a billion artist like Elton. It's such an honor to have worked with him. And when you see his work ethic, he's had more challenges than most people have with substance addiction, family issues and everything. And he's used music to work through those problems, and also because of his incredible talent to have a full career with that.
Can you please explain a little bit more on this? Because it's just, yeah, when I was young, I was a kind of Beatles fan, but it was just for in, and I loved the Beatles. I couldn't explain something why it's good. I can love a song from Elton John, but why, as a professional, you say he is so exceptional?
One of the privileges of being in the inner circle workings with Elton, in this day and age of YouTube, there's videos of every concert that he's done, private concerts, public concerts, videos of him throwing tantrums and things. What you don't see is the actual private time of him in the recording studio during the actual creation process, the compositional process of the song. I believe there's one video out which documents a making of a record, but to actually to sit with him as he's creating and to see the speed and how fast his brain is working at processing. He'll start with a lyric. He'll just put the lyric on the music board and read through it. And after reading through it, it creates a little movie in his mind. And then he'll just rest his hands on the keyboard, and within the next 55, 60 minutes, he will have created a whole song, the chord progression, the melody line, the vocal line. At the conclusion of that hour, he will have actually recorded the final piano composition, the actual final vocal performance. These are things which can take people weeks to do if they're reasonably talented. Mm-hmm. And it is so absolute second nature to him. It's just unbelievable to see the speed. I remember one time he had to write a song for his AIDS Foundation. And in that 1 hour when he was working on it, he literally came up with 3 stylistically completely different songs of the same lyric, mm-hmm. and just decided, I'll go with this one. And it's fascinating because every one was as good as the next. Mm-hmm. The other 2 just went into storage. He didn't think anything of it. It was just, well, this is the one I want. Where lesser artists, which are most of us, would be clamoring to have any of the throwaways.
It is fascinating because I just get the idea. It's just fantasy, but he is not writing the lyrics. Like he can write the whole song. He just creates the music, and maybe he can't write the lyrics because it takes too much time, and he just gets download very fast, like channeling the music. Mm-hmm.
I think he doesn't, and this is my own opinion, why he doesn't like write lyrics, I should say, is that his lyric partner, Bernie Taupin, basically for his whole life,
Mm.
when you have someone who does it so well,
Yeah.
and you know you're not going to be able to do it better, focus on what you do best. And
Yes.
he lets Bernie focus on what he does best.
Yeah.
Uh, so I think it's as simple as that. Um, and also it also helped make the Elton signature sound. The
Mm.
Elton Bernie comes up with the lyrics, and it's fascinating because I've had the privilege of being able to read a lyric before it becomes a song.
Hmm.
Now let's think about that for a moment.
Yeah.
Once the public hears the song, they can't read the lyric as a poem without hearing the melody
Yes.
that is associated with it. They are just forever locked together.
Yeah.
I have the advantage of, for about an hour, that I can actually read the lyric before it becomes anything other than a short story or a
You
poem.
created your own music to it, or just dive
Yes.
into the lyrics? No, you
Well,
created. Mm.
I will sit and read the lyric and see what I think would
Yeah.
be my melodic line.
Hmm.
Uh, because I have that advantage for that very short window. Again, because once Elton starts playing, he will lock it into something, and then it is forever that.
Yeah.
Um, so, but it's fascinating because it's not written by Elton. He's not trying to phrase it to music. He has a story which he wants to preserve that artist's vision, in this case, Bernie's story, and not to change to any great order the phrasing, the amount of words per line, and that makes him have some constraints of how he can do the music. And what's interesting is when we are given constraints to do something, that's when we find our creativity at its greatest.
Mm.
Because once we have to work within confines, we figure out how our easy solutions that may not fit, we have to force ourselves into a more creative mode to fit into that confine, which in the end can come up with an even better product.
Wow. Very
And
well advice. Yeah.
that's exactly what happened with the in piano teleprompter system.
Yes.
I had some very hard and fast constraints I had to work within.
Hmm.
And that forced me to another level of creativity. And at the conclusion of it, I'm so glad it did, because it made me grow and ended up coming up with a better product.
And this product was so good and interesting that another superstar now is using it. Maybe you like to share this in. It's about you, how incredible you are, because you created something, or the musician and technician came together. Yeah. For.
Yes, I remember we were doing a an Elton tribute show at Madison Square Garden, the theater at Madison Square Garden, and one of the guest performers was Lady Gaga. And one of her team had said to me, whatever you do, make sure she does not see the teleprompter built into the piano, because she will want one of those. So when she showed up for her rehearsal, I walked her over to the piano and I said, oh, by the way, look at this. Elton has his own teleprompter. And you can guess where that has led now. So,
Yeah. But just been talking about you more, or your creativity or your capability of technician and musician. If I remember right, she didn't expect you to really build it in, because there is something, I'm not the musician, with the chords we need to be there. It's not just the lyrics or everything.
yes, that particular performance was fascinating, because she said, well, I don't need the lyrics. I know the song I'm singing. Um, she was doing the song in a different key, and actually the music chart she had sitting on top of the piano. Now, because this was a televised event, her charts were on white paper. It was a black piano, and that would throw off color balance and other things with the actual television performance. And I said, well, we can actually put all of your notes, literally notes, the chord progressions, the charts, into the teleprompter, which she had never heard of, as far as I knew. And she had said, well, to do that, whoever is running it would actually have to really know music and know the song and know the phrasing, because without lyrics, it's just a series of chords. And I said, no worries, I'll be the one doing it. And she came back the next day and saw that it was all programmed. And kudos to her, because she said, okay, let's go for it. And we immediately did it. And again, flawless. She was able to see that and give that much better of performance, because she didn't have to flip sheet music around. Things were right in front of her where they needed to be. And it ended up, again, producing a really good entertainment product.
Yeah, and after the end of the 330 farewell tour shows with Elton John, now Lady Gaga, so you are working with Lady Gaga now in Las Vegas when she is doing some show now. So what a teleprompter can also do, and it shows also which respect you get from the stars. Not everybody can work 25 years with Sir Elton, and not everybody is called in the Lady Gaga team. So there's something special with you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes. So we mentioned now Gaga and Elton, and just a little bit with Elton John. What is so special with them? And it's also like you being 25 years there, and you said something, you are very good. No, that's not enough for me. I want to do better. So what is it really? You worked, and not only with those two guys, you met a lot of superstars, like as I mentioned, also Tina Turner. What is it? What makes really the kind of superstar? It's not just luck. You can maybe, to stay there.
It's interesting because it's such a culmination of different skill sets. And one other very large variable on top of that, which is just what the environment in the world is at the time. You mentioned the Beatles. Yes, very good songwriters, but people have speculated the Beatles would not have been such a world phenomenon if the political scene in the world had not been what it was at that time. Mm-hmm. Now, still, they would have been a very successful band, but would they have had as much of a global impact as they did? Mm-hmm. If it hadn't been for where the world was with the way politics was treating the different wars around the world, and how it was a period where the voice of young people had not been listened to as much before, and young people were rising up and learning how to band together and to do more peaceful expressions and get their voice across. So for the superstars to evolve, it's quite fascinating. So much of that is where things are in the world. When Elton started out, he was at the end of what was more of an acoustic, almost folk era of music. And there was heavy rock that was out at the time, Led Zeppelin and Black Sabbath, which at the time was deemed to have a lot of dark or black connotations to it. Elton realized that we were going from an era of softer music, and people were looking for not just background music. They were looking for more entertainment. And with that started the whole era of the outrageous costumes and things.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where, before that, you had some artists, especially in England, Mark Bolan with his group, that started getting into more interesting fashions. Elton just pushed that even further. And again, it was a time where, young people culturally, they were looking to not just wear their parents' clothes. And Elton gave them license to pursue their own creativity and fashion. And now, instead of just having their own music, they had their own music, their own fashion, and in that they created their own lifestyle, and which went hand in hand with what he was doing. And that, I believe, also helped push him into the superstar status. Now, obviously, at the core of it,
time needs to be right, and then whatever you need to get the, what do you get, zeitgeist or whatever you call it.
Yeah.
But okay, a lot of people were thinking also, let's go to San Francisco with flowers in the air, and then they're gone.
Yeah.
So what is it would keep them so long? When, like I said, Elton John said with his band, they worked 50 years together in such a successful way. That is immense.
I think what creates longevity is never becoming disconnected from your audience or the world you live in. Mm-hmm. There are many celebrities who, once they hit a certain status, then build a wall around them and become insulated from the challenges and troubles that most of the people in the world are having. Mm-hmm. With Elton, he did the opposite. The greater his level of celebrity got, the more he got involved in charities and the AIDS Foundation, and in his situation, just being global. The fact that he globetrotted and went to every country imaginable and seeing firsthand the challenges of people, and letting that, he took that in, and he knows that, yes, he's extremely fortunate for his situation, mm-hmm. but with that, being the kind of person that says, wait, I'm fortunate, but given this position that I'm in, I can do so much more than other people can, and I should. Mm-hmm. And that's, by doing that, in other words, for him actually helping other people outside of his industry probably helped catapult him even further, because he's never lost touch with his environment and the surroundings. And then, as the writings, the future songs would always be relevant, because he was staying in tune with the current environment. And that way you never got that situation of, oh, I can no longer connect with him because he's still singing about things of my teenage years or my college mm-hmm. years. Mm-hmm. As Elton's fans aged, as well as he did, their concerns of later in life were Elton's concerns as well. And he wrote about those just as much as material that interested a younger generation. Mm-hmm. And that's what helped build him into the superstar.
Just a kind of maybe not so serious question, but you talked about Elton and his fantasy dresses for that time. Mm-hmm. But then came Lady Gaga years later with fancy dresses. So you work with Elton John and you work with Lady Gaga. Is your creativity, or is Lindsay too bored to work really with others? They need to be more creative like that?
No, I appreciate creativity on all levels. Other artists, I actually worked as keyboard player for Alice Cooper, the original shock rocker.
Yeah.
And that was very enjoyable because, again, a lot of the theater aspect, the pageantry of what he would do. But then other artists such as Hall and Oates, Daryl Hall and John Oates, they are completely opposite. Their whole performance, nothing fancy as far as stage costumes. Often it wouldn't seem that they changed their clothes at all from when they showed up at the theater to walking on stage. Their focus was all about the melody line and the message in the music. Yeah. And seeing how their focus and specialty talent was in that creation of the amazingly catchy melody line, or interesting story that we can all relate to. We all relate to, but we make it our own personal story, which that unto itself is a huge talent, and that's what kept me going with them.
The message you said in the music, and as we come here to an end, already a big thank you for sharing something of your experience, your life, and your wisdom. And as we have the Winspiration show here, so can you say one kind of inspiring sentence that the listener this is something valuable I can focus on to be also more happy and successful in life?
Well, with myself, I'll say right off, after working with decades with these artists, I'm very excited right now because now is the time for my own music. I will be, we were discussing earlier, I have my own home studio, and now that I'm done with the huge global touring, I'm going to be focusing on creating my own music, which is extremely exciting for me. Why that is because in hearing other people's music and seeing that ultimately what they did was not try to replicate other people's music, just turn inside to what they feel inspires them the most and go with that, and not try to create
copy someone or whatever.
Right. And I'm at a point where now that's
and in the word Winspiration takes a spirit, and so be connected to your own soul and express it as best as you can. And thank you, Lindsay, for sharing it. Sorry that I'm now at a little bit fast at the end, but the time is over and we have to be in the slot here.
Okay.
Thank you very much, and listener, be Winspired, and have you fully on the next episode. This was another episode of Winspiration, Wisdom and Information to support you getting out of illusions, false identifications, limiting beliefs. We all have the power and potential to be more, do more, have more, give more. Reality is what is possible in the universe, and the best is yet to come. If you want to dive deeper into possibilities of creating the extraordinary future, go to winspiration.global or to wolfgangsonnenburg.com. More information and some free downloads like the email program Dream Goals Reality or a copy of the book The Best Is Yet to Come can be found on the UK Health Radio website under the Listen on Demand and Presenters section. Join us again next week on the Winspiration Show for more wisdom and information to create your extraordinary future.